Greetings, everybody. Welcome once again to the Rec Poker Podcast, sponsored as always by Running Aces Racetrack, Casino, and Hotel, as well as website AMP. And in this chats edition of the podcast, we're going to talk to the man, the myth, the legend. We got John Barrows, you guys. He's the tournament director, tournament manager. He's the who'sness of the muchness of Running Aces, our official sponsor, who's been with us from the beginning. But we are going to pick John's brain a little bit and talk about the business of poker. I know not a lot of recreational players kind of think about that poker is actually a business inside of the casino business. And so we want to unpack that a little bit and pick his brain. But let's first introduce the panel to you. My name is Steve Fredland. I go by Rec Poker Steve in the PokerStars home game. And my quote is from John Lidgate. He said that you can please some of the people all the time, and you can please all of the people some of the time, but you can't please all the people all of the time. And I think John will attest to that.
And I'm Chris Jones. I'm 5x5 on PokerStars home game and Twitter. And I got my first taste of live poker back this weekend at Running Aces, and it was just it was like the happiest I've ever been playing poker. It was just awesome. So it was great.
I'm Jim Reed, Bluff Serini in the home game, and you can find out about me and all the other members of the wrecking crew by going to rec.poker/crew. And I just want to say, hi, Mom. Hope you're listening.
And I'm John Somsky. I'm Poker Geek MN everywhere. And my quote today is from Sammy Farha. Just play every hand. You can't miss them all. So,
Raisy daisy.
That's how he wants all of his opponents to play, I am sure.
Yeah, Frogman Rick in the home games, boy, he likes that quote a lot. Well, we're gonna chat with John, and then after that we'll dig into the community happenings. We're gonna be talking a little bit about more of our reflections from the Rec Poker reunion at Running Aces, as well as the home game winners and a bunch of other stuff. But let's bring him in, John Barrows. John, I don't know if you're officially the tournament director, tournament manager, but Running Aces, our go-to guy, our best friend when it comes to the podcast. How are you doing, young man?
I'm well, thank you, and thank you for having me on, and thank you for the kind words.
Absolutely. I just read the script that you sent me, so hopefully I did that well. So what is your official title at Running Aces?
I am officially still the casino tournament manager. What that encompasses is I manage all of the tournament operations for the casino. That includes poker, actually, and it includes blackjack tournaments, which obviously I know your folks really aren't focused on, but that is something I also, when we were running blackjack tournaments, I oversaw that operation as well. A lot of behind the scenes things, business and planning wise that I do. In addition, I run poker tournaments as well, which, I know both yourself and John have experienced many times where I've ran tournaments that you were involved in. So kind of double wear those hats most of the time since the pandemic. Running Aces hasn't run tournaments up until this last weekend for the, which you've mentioned, the Rec Poker reunion tournaments. Something we're obviously looking and I'm working hard at to get going again. So in the interim, what I have been doing is working in the poker room as one of the poker room managers. And in that, included in that was a lot of getting the poker room up and running again, not only from a small, we started at 5 tables. When we reopened again in January, we moved to 10 tables. Again, a lot of behind the scenes things, plus the very substantial challenge of getting the room staffed back up. And when we talk business, the business of poker, that is one of our big concerns. And it's not just our concern, but it's a concern of a lot of casinos around. I know our biggest competitor has the same concern. And getting staffing right now is a huge challenge for us.
Yeah, I do small business consulting, and I know restaurants that are offering $5,000 to $10,000 sign-on bonuses for a short order cook. Over the road truckers are offering these huge bonuses. It's really, really difficult. And so, yeah, I mean, how are you sort of trying to tackle that challenge? In the midst of this situation where it's tough to get anybody to come and take that job.
Well, it's interesting. Bonuses, we have a posting right now and we're actually about to take it down. We were hiring support staff in the poker room, chip runners and podium hosts, the people who check people in. And we were offering a bonus as well, a $2,500 bonus. And it's the first time we've ever done that, which tells you about the environment that we're in.
Yeah.
It's significant, and Running Aces, what we've done, and I know our competitor, and I'll mention him, Canterbury, has done the same thing now. We're running poker classes where we teach people how to deal poker. Many years ago, I was fortunate enough not to have to do this, but many years ago, it was a very common thing that if you wanted to get into the industry, you either had to know somebody, or the more likely avenue was going to be you were going to pay to attend a school. And it was a significant amount of money that you paid to attend a class. Somebody would teach you how to deal poker. And this was not insignificant money. And you weren't even necessarily guaranteed auditions or guaranteed jobs or anything. And the pendulum has really swung. And now we're finding out that we're having to get very creative to get people in. And, I don't think anything is off the table going forward when it comes to staffing up our building. And maybe, you never know, we may be offering signing bonuses for poker dealers at some point.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah, well, it's the nature of any business, right? It's ebb and flow, and dynamics change. And I think the general population that hasn't been a business owner, hasn't been a business leader, doesn't really understand that. And so we run into these situations where, poker players that maybe haven't been in that situation don't really get, why is this so hard to get dealers? Why is it, why can't we have 40-minute levels on a $50 tournament with no rake? Like, I don't understand why this is so hard. Like, my buddy does that in his garage all the time.
Right, exactly.
They're not thinking about the business of poker. So that's why we wanted to have you on. So I want to talk a little bit about, let's start about, kind of where does poker fit into the landscape of casino profitability? I know that, Running Aces is different from every other casino. Everybody's different, but you guys have harness racing, you have table games, you have video poker, you have live poker, which is cash and tournaments. So talk a little bit about where does tournament poker specifically fit into the profitability matrix, if you will, of a casino? How big of a piece of that is that?
I'll use everything I'm going to talk about will be kind of pre-pandemic. So pre-COVID, because that is also ultimately our goal, is to be in that kind of an operation again.
Let's hope so, right? Like that's
right.
Let that be the vision. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our vision. And so given where we're at right now, obviously tournament poker isn't fitting a lot in for us right now. So prior to the pandemic, for Running Aces specifically, and I know others might be a little bit different, but Running Aces, for lack of a better number, poker represented about maybe 10 to 15% of our total gaming revenue. Most of our gaming revenue comes from table games, and a very small slice of our gaming revenue comes from the harness racing proceeds. And then obviously we have some other, things that there's a little bit involved in, but very, very, very little in that, in that regard. So where tournament poker fits in for us is we always managed tournament poker in terms of the business side as I don't want to use the term loss leader because we didn't lose money at it. However, we looked at it as a way to really bring people into our operation. If you go back 7-8 years ago, we were struggling as a company, and one of my predecessors, Tristan Wilberg, who's one of our shift managers now, he had a real nice vision for what poker tournaments could be at Running Aces, and really started to get that going as a way to drive traffic into the building. So you started seeing us do a lot of things like $30 tournaments, where players could come in and play a poker tournament, get 4 to 5 hours of legitimate poker play with legitimate dealers, an actual tournament director at the cost of $30. It's just a fantastic value. We obviously weren't making money out of it, but we were driving traffic with it. He developed our free roll as well, which we had on Monday nights. And the free roll actually ended up being from on a weekly perspective was our most popular event and drove a lot of traffic into the building. And what we ended up finding out was it became a great vehicle to help rec players get into those move up levels, because we started using the free roll to drive business to our multi-day events.
Right.
Our niche has kind of been with multi-day events has been that, that $200 to $300 up to $500 buy-in, a relatively affordable level for the rec player. And so we really started focusing on giving away seats, getting rec players into multi-day events. And all that did was just push and drive those monthly main events that we had, through the roof. We did fantastic for them. And the revenue actually became pretty solid out of them as well. So definitely there is a place for tournament poker in any casino, I think, and for us as well. And we even have some private conversations going on right now about what's the state of the poker room and how are we going to expand it to make it work. So the good news is those things are going on still. There's definitely value there and it fits.
So let's talk a little bit. I love it. I mean, I love it as part of the business model. And I think it seems like you've done a good job of, where needed, training your superiors on how it fits into the overall model. Not that they don't understand it, but because from a profitability perspective, tournament poker is just not there with the others. And so I think that's a point that's important for the recreational player to realize, is that tournament poker is not making a lot of money off of you. It's paying the bills, but it's not like funding the casino. And so one of the questions that I do get, and I know you and I have talked a little bit about, is profitability from a cash poker perspective and a tournament poker perspective. Maybe talk a little bit about why are cash games more profitable for the casino than tournaments?
Okay. So cash games, because we rake on a per hand basis, cash games become such a hands per hour kind of driven business, whereas the tournament poker is a fixed revenue amount. We know once that tournament buy-in's done, we know how much revenue we're getting. And at that point, it's how long is the tournament going to take, and your hourly rate in terms of revenue depends strictly upon that. Whereas cash game revenue, it's as long as the cash game's open, we know we're going to make a rough ballpark figure. It tends to be higher. Actually, it's quite a bit higher. And short of getting into the actual physical numbers, it's strictly a volume perspective. We're cranking out, and cash games are cranking out 30 to 35 hands per hour, many of them which are raked 3/4 to full, anywhere from, so we're raking $3 to $4 per hand. Whereas in tournament poker, we don't care about hands per hour because the tournament players they've paid. So at this point, their hands per hour is kind of on them. And a lot of tournament players prefer to play at a slower pace, which is why they like tournament poker. They can be more analytical. They can work more on, many of the things you guys talk about on a weekly basis, reads, how they level set and all of those things. But what ends up happening is it takes longer. So, and for us, time truly is money. The longer a table's open, the more money I spend on it, between dealer hours, tournament director hours, and even to sliver that out a little bit, I technically have cashier hours, and then, all of the other support departments, security, surveillance, above that, that still technically slides in there a little bit to cover that. And that's before I even get into fixed cost coverage. So, so for us, revenue wise, obviously cash games are strong. Weekly tournaments are not super strong, but they also serve a purpose. And we definitely, I don't want to slight them at all, because I think they matter. They matter a lot because it also exposes people to the casino. It exposes them to things that, again, you move them up. A lot of players aren't comfortable with cash, but they can play a tournament. Eventually they'll play some cash. I've noticed we've had a lot of tournament players playing cash since we've reopened, since last summer. And in part because we don't have tournaments available, and they're branching out. The fear factor is gone a little bit. So,
well, I know you and I have joked quite a bit in the past about me being your worst customer ever because I come in, I grab the free soda or the water, and I come play a tournament. And then when I'm done, I leave. I walk past the blackjack, I walk past the cash games, and I just walk out the door like I'm your worst customer ever. But so for you guys, part of the challenge is figure, okay, well, if tournaments are a way to get people in the building to then also, hey, man, there's horse racing. We should go check that out. Or we should go have dinner over here. I should invite my friends over to do this or play blackjack. So do you guys, as part of the business, I assume with players cards and that sort of thing, are you able to track some of that? I mean, more than anecdotally, where you're saying, hey, I noticed that, some tournament players are playing cash tournament or cash games. Are you able to actually kind of track that and see what kind of value tournament players bring to the casino at large beyond the tournament?
I actually am. As a matter of fact, one of the things I do as part of my behind the scenes role is I will take, because tournament players, you're required to use a player card to play in a tournament. So, and typically if you've got a player card, what we've experienced is that you'll use it in a live game in order to get your comps, because we comp live players back some money, whether it's pit or poker, they'll get some sort of comp back. Whether it's, you can call it rake back, however you want to term it, but it's some sort of comp that goes back. So most of the time they use their card. So one of the things I do is I actually will take all of my tournament entrants and then measure the amount of cash game play that they will play in that particular day. So say for you example, for you, Steve, you played the Friday morning tournament a lot, that $100 tournament we had, prior to the shutdown was a real popular tournament for us and becoming a real popular tournament for us. So in theory, what I would do is after that tournament's done, the next week I would take everybody that played that tournament and I would run those numbers against, I have a report that can show me how much cash game play they played, every one of those players in our facility. And then I can show to, the people that matter to me, my superiors then I can show them, hey, I'm getting this many hours in cash game play out of my tournament players. And it's a fantastic way to correlate value to having a tournament in the building. And I'll share with you one of the big revelations with the free roll. So you think of a free roll and you think, well, how are these guys getting away with dumping 6 or 7 main event seats into a free roll every week and making this work?
And all the dealers and everything for 200, 300 people, right? I mean, it's
yeah. So I've got 12 to 15 dealers in on a Monday night when I don't need them normally. I've got a tournament director, and the place is pell-mell for 2 hours straight or 3 hours, and tables are breaking constantly because it's a real tight structure and it's just nuts.
Yeah.
So how does something like that work for us profitability wise? And I was able to show that we were gaining an average of about 300 hours of table game play every Monday before the start of the tournament and after the end of the tournament. Wow. So on a night that normally would be a pretty quiet night for us, and that's just a rough number, and that's just an example of how we were able to correlate why this is a good event for the players and for running aces, because again, it exposes the players to a venue they don't normally get. A guy that's a rec player who's, literally his recreational budget is, his rec budget might only be $100, but all of a sudden he wins, or he's one of the top 5 on a Monday night, and now he's got a seat into a 280 event.
Well, yeah, I mean, how about Emmanuel Evigan? I mean, you know this story. I mean, Emmanuel, I don't think he even did any add-ons. He was late showing up to the free roll. He got the 2,000 chips. We interviewed him on the podcast. He ends up one of those 7 seats. He ends up winning the 290 for $40,000 or something like that.
Yep.
And it changed his life, right? I mean, I think those are the cool stories, right? That make people think it's the moneymaker. Like maybe I could do that too.
It is, yeah, and it does. It gives us that. It's funny you mentioned moneymaker, because that is exactly what this is. It's still the moneymaker dream, except really in a live event.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for it to come back. But it was a great, and that's from a business perspective, it shows you the value of tournaments. and we all see it. So, there's still always going to be the pressure of profitability, hence why structure ends up tightening. Something always has to give because costs do go up.
Yeah.
So,
and I think,
that might be a great segue into the other
right,
topics.
that's what I'd love to talk about. And I think, it's very shrewd of you to connect those dots, because I think it's not maybe intuitively obvious to everybody to connect those dots. And I think that's important that you do that, because as a tournament player, we can't lose tournaments. You need to keep fighting for us, John. But yeah, I think I just lost my train of thought. What were you just talking about, John?
Talking about how
rate.
costs are going up. Costs going up. How do we manage costs going up while at the same time making the value of the event still good for the player? It's a tricky balancing act.
That is a balancing act, right? Like, yeah, thank you for the reminder, but because that is what we hear, like all I hear is, wow, man, the structure is too fast, or, why are they taking so much rake or whatever? I mean, you're taking $15 off or whatever. And, people want it all. So maybe, yeah, do talk a little bit about how do you do that? How do you approach that with the price range, and say, how do I balance how long this tournament's going to go with how much rake I'm going to collect with, how deep the structure is and all of these things. How do you go about that?
So basically, what I've tried to do, and not every house is going to be the same way. Every other casinos may do things differently. Certainly they probably do things differently. What I've always tried to do when working out tournament costs or tournament structures and tournament cost is I tried to keep it fairly consistent from a buy-in perspective. I price point anything under $100. I've tried to keep at a flat rake level, and I've strictly adjusted based upon structure. And then $100 and above, the rake level goes up a little bit, structure gets better.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously when we get into main event structure, rake level goes up again. But percentage wise, the rake level actually starts to drop. So,
yeah.
And so I try to when I talk a little bit about this, I try not to go into the percentage factor too much, because the lower the buy-in tournament, the higher the percentage is just strictly going to be. Facts are, if I run a $30 poker tournament, I still need to charge something. So even if that ends up being, we were only raking $8 on a $30 tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, it was in that one instance, those tournaments actually were a loss leader for us. Many times when I would run my profitability, analysis on those tournaments, we were negative. Mm-hmm. So we would run those tournaments basically at a cost to the casino. In hindsight, it still was a good thing at the time. Going forward, that probably won't be a strategy I'll use.
Yep.
It's a fact of life.
Yep.
So having said that, so as a percentage, we were looking at a little over 25% back then. Mm-hmm. And then I think our biggest percentage that we would rake was the $50 event, our $50 tournaments where we were raking $15 on.
Yep.
So basically anything between 50 and 99, I'll use 99 as the number because we don't have a $99 buy-in, but anything between 50 and 99, I raked $15. Mm-hmm. So percentage wise would change just on buy-in, but the rake stayed the same, level stayed the same. So the buy-in ended up becoming more of a function of trying to get people in at certain times of the day. Buy-ins tend to be a little bit lower morning times. It's a different crowd. You can have a little more of aggressive buy-in later in the day. So those 6 p.m., 7 p.m. kind of start times, you can have a bigger buy-in because you tend to get, a little bit more discretionary dollars coming into the building. Mm-hmm. So that was my goal when I would really set those structures up, was to think about where the right buy-in level should be, and then what the rake structure should be going along with that.
Yep.
And then considering, that, and then I'm pretty happy to say up until now, we haven't really raised our rake structure at Running Aces in a long time. So
that was one of the questions I had for you. Is, I know you haven't, like, as long as I've been around, which isn't right. The whole time Running Aces has been open. And I'm like, I'm pretty well aware of what, like, the cost of living increase and what it has been over that time. And so presumably your costs for overhead, for electricity, for dealers, for benefits, all of those things have been increasing every year and the rake hasn't. And so what gives? Like, how do we do that? I know that's not a sustainable business model.
Right. So two things occur with that. And let's talk. The minimum wage is always the easy one that everybody kind of understands because they know where minimum wage is at. And our dealers are tipped employees, but they get a minimum wage as well.
Right.
7, 8 years ago or 10 years ago when Running Ace, or 12 years ago when Running Ace opened, state minimum wage, I think, was $7 an hour or $6.75 or something. Now it's $10.08, I believe is the number. But yeah, you're right. Our rake hasn't gone up.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to make the tournament even kind of keep it level in terms of net revenue, you could pull levels out, you can take chips out of play, or you can raise the rake up. So I have tweaked levels a little bit, enough to where we've been able to keep the tournaments kind of at the same numbers in terms of profitability. However, those numbers have gone down. Like, when I use the $30 tournament as an example, it was becoming, in 2019, it was becoming very apparent that in order for that to be profitable, I had to have 150 entries, which is just mind numbing. In order for a tournament to be profitable, that I have to have 150 entries. That's, like you said, it's not a sustainable business model.
Yeah.
So at some point, something was going to give.
Yeah.
But, so coming out of the pandemic, I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody, but our rake is going up a little bit when we do have tournaments back. But I think it's going to be it'll be a pleasant surprise for people when they do see the rake structure. So I'm pretty happy about that so far. It will be going up, but it won't be going up so much that people will be offended by it. And I think, this weekend was a good litmus test for us in terms of structure and kind of gave me some ideas about how I want the structure to look going forward. But the structure that I have, I think, in place in general, I think is going to work pretty well. So I'm pretty happy about that. And I actually kind of can't wait to get it rolled out at some point. So,
and I think that's one of the roles that we want to take on too, is to help people understand why rakes do go up. Like, I think the people that aren't really close to it don't really get it, why the rakes are going to go up. And this may be a great opportunity for you to do that, but to just recognize that expenses have increased dramatically, the rake needs to increase dramatically. And I know you're looking at it really from a business perspective as a business owner, business manager, business leader. And I know I've looked at structures from a user perspective and trying to find a metric that actually makes sense. I know different people have different ways to look at it, but I tried to break it down and said, okay, what are the average expected number of hours I'm going to play in this tournament to reach the final table? So that's kind of how I look at it. And then I look at what is the cost per hour? What is my overall cost per expected hour if I reach the final table? And I should reopen this whole thing, but I did a broad analysis. And this isn't just because you're our sponsor, but Running Aces was always on top of that thing. And so when you look at, because your structure was so much better than other local tournaments, at least the ones that I looked at. And so I knew that I could actually, as a hobbyist, I could pay less per hour to come have somebody bring me drinks, deal to me, what a great thing, right? And not have to create a poker tournament myself. So, kudos to you for that. But I want to open it up. Any questions from the panel? Chris, it looks like maybe you've got a question or a comment.
Well, the only other thing I wanted to add to this, because the other, John, I'm sure you're more familiar than I am about how wonderful poker players are, but how they also like to complain about everything.
No.
We're all good at that to some extent.
But I mean, I think the other thing that you often hear from people, and I think people got a little spoiled even with COVID and some of the rules that went into place, is like, why can't we always be 6-handed or 7-handed? Why, I think people were like, and then, some of the walls came down and it said, well, why don't we just stay 7-handed? And maybe you can talk about that mix into the dynamic of between rake and structure and buy-in, and then also how many players you have at a table, especially for tournaments, like how that plays into the mix.
So the volume of player per table really will drive as the manager, for me, the total amount of table hours that are open for the tournament, which is my cost. So obviously the fewer players per table, the more table hours I have. Now, there are tournaments that you run that are shorthanded. We used to run a tournament that was a 6 max event and was pretty popular. So I know we follow TDA, and when we open, we will go back to a 9. We will stay at 9-handed for a tournament structure. You could go less, but again, there is a break point there. So if I have, say, an 80-player tournament, say I have 80 seats, and I want to run it 9-handed, say I got 8 tables. Let's do better numbers. I got 8 tables. I want to go 9-handed. I can seat 72 players. If I only want to go 8-handed, I can seat 64 players. So if you're talking 8 players of revenue, say I'm raking $25 a head, that's a $200 hit to the company. Or I have to have more tables open to make that up. So if I want to add those 8 players, I need to open up one more table. I can get that extra $200, but it's going to cost me X amount of additional table time hours to have it open. And then it may get into, now you get into other cost factors too, some opportunity costs. What if I only have one more table available and I want to use it for a cash game as an example? So do I give up that opportunity of that cash game revenue to have that tournament open? It's not just if it's just a simple, well, just open another table thing. Well, that's an easy decision to make if, assuming you've got staff available, et cetera. But if it's not always just that simple, sometimes it is opportunity cost. So that's an important and probably one of the more overlooked factors when making those decisions. So in general, I'm a proponent of generally having a 8 to 9-handed tournament is what I would prefer to have as a tournament director. Just from a management perspective, also, it makes running the tournament a little more predictable. Those 6 max tournaments, they're fun to play, they're fun to run, but boy, you can get really tricky with trying to keep tables balanced. Yeah. And you start bouncing players back and forth. And I know many of you have probably experienced this, but there's nothing more frustrating than getting moved. And then all of a sudden, guess what? You get moved 10 minutes later, and then you get moved again. And I'm the director, and I'm sheepishly coming over with a rack of saying, well, I gotta have you go. You're the big blind coming up. I'm moving you. And I've already moved you once, and you're losing value now because you're in theory losing hands. I prefer to not.
We see you coming, and we're like, "Who's in the big blind?" Oh,
right. And everybody knows the look. They all see the look on my face, and they know what's coming. And it's an unavoidable thing. And one of the things I really tasked the Running Aces tournament team is to be active and be aggressive, keep tables balanced. And I thought we did a pretty darn good job of it. And in main events, even daily events, I really pushed to keep tournaments balanced, tables balanced. It was something I heard coming in when I first took the role over back in 2018. And I really focused on it. I think we've done a really nice job of that. So, and it's something I will continue to focus on. There, I mean, I hope that it's kind of a lot of talk, but I hope that covers kind of the whole process of why you want to keep the tables as many-handed as possible to at least open up. Now, I will tell you this, we are going to be 9-handed going forward. We were 10-handed prior to the pandemic. So that is one change that I am making, in part because I am raising rake a little bit, and TDA that's their preferred tournament style going forward is 9-handed, short of, special event kind of things. But they have recommended 9-handed as the norm. And I would like to stick with that as much as possible. And plus, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit extra space at the table.
I was going to say, we're all big guys here. We like to get those elbows and knees involved.
We haven't met in person, Jim, but I'm pretty big. So, and Steve and Chris could probably attest to that a little bit. You know, and John's not as big as he used to be, but he could probably understand as well. He's a lot
Oh, yeah.
smaller.
John's half the man he used to be.
Definitely, that's for sure.
Well, I think it's good to know we've all gone through COVID, and we've witnessed a number of businesses that were not able to survive. So we have to remember that everything here is a two-way street.
Mhm.
So if we don't, as players, make it so that Running Aces can make a profitable business, then we don't have a place to play.
Yeah.
So, we've got to look at it both ways. It would be great if they would put on a tournament that would charge $1 a rake for a $55 buy-in, and the tournament would run for 12 hours over 3 days. That would be a great structure for people. They would do it for a month and go out of business and then never do it again.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've got to keep in mind, now it's not saying you can't push for getting good value out of your money. I'm not saying that. We all want that. But on the other hand, it's got to be a win-win for both sides.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and that's why we started experimenting with other kind of events and trying to come up with different ways to get extra value for players while we were still making an appropriate, what we needed to make the tournament viable for us. The Great Minnesota, which was our August main event, and I don't know if you guys recall this one, but it was an opportunity to play a multi-day event for $150 technically, and we had some add-on features to that as well, where you could do a $50 re-entry basically if you felt it. And then there was a staff appreciation that we threw in there. So in theory, you could spend up to $210. But we gave a lot of chips out for it. So in theory, you could have actually had a starting stack of like 40,000 chips, if I recall. And I don't remember the exact.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a great, but for a 2-day event, for a multi-day event, we had 20-minute blind levels. So you can imagine what it was like to go into day 2. The first iteration of that, we brought back almost 200 players into day 2, which was just a blast. Now, it was a blast for the players. I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And we had 3 tournament directors that day, and we were breaking tables faster than we could move people around. It was just incredible. It almost felt like a World Series event. It was kind of fun in that regard. But that was an opportunity for us to, again, the value there was really, we raked, I think our rake on that, I think I had it set at $25 on the 150. And then the additional 50, I think was another $15 to $20.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended up being, if you were one of the fortunate ones that could kind of run in cheap, you could have raked that, $25 for that $150 buy-in wasn't all that bad for a multi-day event. So getting creative like that is really the challenge. I mean, I think tournament managers across the United States, probably up until the last couple of years, or even the last year, probably haven't had to really become creative. Well, they're going to have to get creative now in order to make these things viable, short of just raking everything, raising rake up to where it's not sustainable or where players don't play. So, because I still want players to come in. So
Right.
Well, so feedback is still always welcome.
Yep. Yeah, especially constructive feedback.
Absolutely.
Especially
ideas.
Feedback is good.
Well, and the Great Minnesota came out of an idea from a player. And a player said, well, why don't you, had said at one point to my predecessor, why don't you guys have a multi-day event for a low buy-in?
Mm-hmm.
So he had this broad base idea that I took and ran with. And after, with one of my other tournament directors and then Tristan Wilberg, we beat this thing up for about 6 months trying to come up with a good structure and the way to make it work. And we came up with it and we just blew it out of the water. So pretty proud of that fact.
I love it. I mean, what I'm hearing there, and I think what the poker world needs to hear, is that our tournament directors, our tournament managers, casino managers are out there trying to be creative, trying to balance these things. And it's not easy. If you've ever had a position in your life that you've had to try to optimize things where there's no something always has to give, it can be really tricky. So I think it's important for people to hear that you are out there trying to, optimize the whole triangle of the rake and the structure and how many
Right.
people at the table. And I think what John said, I think is impressive. I think that's right on. We're in this movement of, hey, support local, support small businesses.
Mhm.
Same thing here, because we want them around. We don't want the flower
Right.
shops and the shoe stores downtowns to close, and we don't want our local card room to close. I don't want you guys to close and have to go more than 20 minutes to go play cards from a
Right.
very selfish perspective. But I think that's what I want the people to hear is that, man, we got good people, smart people trying to crack this nut of how do we optimize the experience. And so I know we're at time, but John, is there anything that you're thinking, man, I really want to kind of share this with people that we didn't really ask you about?
Oh, sure. Well, we kind of touched on it just recently here. Feedback, I think, is great. One of the things that I have really, since I took the role over back in 2018, was I really focused on listening to our customers. I think they come up with great ideas. And to me, if it's presented in a positive manner, or at least a constructive manner,
Right.
to me, that feedback is invaluable. And the more feedback that players can provide, even if it's an off the wall idea, you never know what can come out of it. So I want to encourage that, whether it's myself or any other room in the country. You guys are the best source of knowledge for us to make tournaments. We're the ones who, when we can come up with ideas, but we don't know if they're going to work or not. Players are a far better source for that. And the more you challenge us, the more we have to be competitive in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So in both on the cost side and the value side. So, we have to give you value at the same time while we earn for the casino, so we can stay in business. So it is it's two-way street, but challenge us. Otherwise, you end up getting, what probably has happened a lot over the country over the last decade, which is just stagnation. Tournaments just look the same. They are the same. Nothing changes. And so the more ideas that can come out, the better. So I would always encourage that. The other thing I would add on the business side of this are, for the career side, people, I'll share with you how I got into this. I kind of got into poker on accident. I've been in this business now I've been working this for about 10 years. I dealt in a bar league for a couple years while I was working here, maybe for a little bit before. And then when I was at Ace, when I started at Aces, I was doing that for a little bit. But my history is I'm a supply chain manager.
Mm-hmm.
So totally out of the casino business. I was in supply chain for over, 13, 14 years. And then I was in real estate. I was a GM of a title and closing services company for a few years. And so I have this really weird background, and I had wanted to become a poker dealer in part because I thought of it as a good retirement job. And so I had a friend who worked at Canterbury who was doing this bar league, kind of trained me, and I ended up getting into running Aces that way. So I kind of fell into it on accident, and it's worked out really well for me. I really enjoy it. And so what I've really found with working in this business is that it's the most fun I've ever had working in my adult career. It's a fun job. Working with you guys is a lot of fun, even though it's frustrating at times. It is a ton of fun. I look forward to, when I was running tournaments, I really looked forward to walking in and find out what kind of tournament I was going to have that day. What can I do to sell our business to these guys, to the tournament players a little bit more? What kind of challenges am I going to have? It's a lot of fun. Dealers, and if you're going to be a dealer in this business, dealers can make good money, working part-time, and they get to deal poker.
Right.
When I was in supply chain, I saw guys loading trucks in the middle of summer, like right now, with a clear top trailer, and the trailer inside is probably 120 degrees. And the sweat is pouring off their foreheads, and they're loading these trucks. And those guys got paid well too. You could be doing that or you could be dealing poker to John Somsky, the most
Thank you,
chill
sir.
guy in the world, who's the nicest guy around, and he's gonna take care of you, and you're gonna have fun while you're working. So for anybody that's ever thought about it, I would say investigate it. Talk to people that are in the business, learn more about it. There are a lot of ways to get into this business, especially right now. There's a ton of opportunities, just like any other business. So if you've ever been on the fence, I would say investigate it. If you have fun playing, you're probably going to have fun working in this business too.
I love that. And I think, as part of our partnership too, like if Rec Poker could play a part in that too, if you're wondering, if you're seeking guidance on, would this be a good career for me or not, reach out to us, man. We
Absolutely
want you to understand that as well. If it's intimidating to go to John or to the casino,
Right.
talk to us. We want to be part of that deal too. And I mean, our community will help you learn the other games too, to supplement the training you're getting.
Absolutely.
And so I do think that's a partnership that we can have. So I love that. And I think dealing could be the end stage career for you. But that's a great career in and of itself. You get to go to the World Series of Poker if you're good enough, and if your desire to do that, you get to deal some of these big tournaments that John puts on, that $100,000 for the winner. You get to be in big spots dealing with people, and you get to deal to people who are going to tip really well in some of the games. Those Omaha games are crazy. These people,
pretty crazy game.
Like they're tipping really well. So I think that's a great thing, but also just getting into the industry. If you love poker, if you love being around poker, I know poker dealers have often made the best players because they sit there and spend hours at a time studying reads and studying what people are doing and betting patterns. And so I think it's a great on-ramp. If it's not the final career stage, it's a great on-ramp to just being in the industry and doing something and being around something that you love.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that about players and dealers being good players. And I remember when I was dealing, and it wasn't even intentional, but it felt like I knew what everybody had.
Yeah.
And it taught me was for your guys, for your audience, what I learned, the lesson from that was pay attention. If you're a player and you're not paying attention, you're missing tons of information, because dealers have to pay attention. We don't have a choice when we're dealing.
Right.
So I got the cards and I'm dealing my cards and I'm running my game. I don't get to watch the TV, or at least if I'm a good dealer, I don't get to watch the TV, or I don't get to talk to the waitress, or I don't get to look at my phone, or I don't get to, talk to the guy next to me about the football game, or, any of that. I've got to run the game. And what I discovered in that process was, boy, I know what everybody's got, or at least I think I do.
Right.
So that was a big wake-up call for me. So if there's no lesson out, if nothing else comes out of this, I think your audience, all the people listening to this, they can take away that, when you're playing at a poker game, doesn't matter if it's tournament or cash, put your phone down, quit watching the TV, watch what's happening, watch players. I mean, you learn a ton of what's going on.
Yep.
And, and then for me, as the guy working in the business, it made the game that much more enjoyable, because I can start to see what people are doing.
Yeah.
And, this makes sense now. Oh, that's why. And so.
Yep. And then if you're a dealer, don't say that in the middle of a hand though.
You still sit there nice and quiet, and you're like, I know what this guy is. But yeah, you don't say that out loud. Right. So,
well, John, I mean, it's always a delight. You and I have talked for hours already before. We'll
absolutely.
talk for hours again, and we could talk for hours now. But this is so good. I hope it just gives some people a little bit more insight into the business side of poker. I think your final two comments about feedback is welcome. Like if it's intimidating to get a hold of John, get a hold of us. We'll pass it on. But John, absolutely. I think that's important. And then the whole the career side is important. And that's part of how we run the business. But as we kind of wrap up here, how do people get in touch with you? If they say, what, John does seem approachable, and he is, I can attest to that. I have ideas that I think are helpful. How do they actually reach out to a casino manager?
So I'm sure every casino across the country has a couple of basic ways to get a hold of them. We have an email feedback piece that any customer can go to. And I think it's just info@runaces.com. It's literally that email address, info@runaces.com. And you can always reach out and just make comments or ask questions. And we get a fair amount of questions regarding tournaments through that outlet already. And Steve, I'm also comfortable sharing my email address with you guys.
Okay.
You can go ahead and you have it, so you can go ahead and share that however you want. I don't know if you want to run a sidebar or whatever, but
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. We'll let people know that.
Yeah, and your audience they're free to reach out to me at any point and ask me questions about anything. I am absolutely open to anything for them. If I can answer questions for them, great. Or if they've got comments or even want to talk about the business, about working in the business, whatever I can do to help out.
Well, it sounds good. I mean, I know you listen to all of my wacky ideas, from charity tournaments to rec poker reunion to everything else. So you're always open to conversation. They don't always work out, but you are open to that. So John, I just want to thank you again for being on here. Thanks for you and the Running Aces team. I'm just an amazing partner for us. We love that we get to champion you guys every week, and we love that we get to have our reunions there and all that stuff. So, man, thanks for all you do for us and for the poker industry in general.
Yeah, glad to be part of it and glad that you guys could have me on. John, it's good to see you again. Chris, I hope you had a good time this weekend. Jim, I can't wait to meet you in person.
Downtown it, buddy. Looking forward to that.
All right.
Well, there he goes, John Barrows. John, you can feel free to drop off. We got some other things we're going to take care of, but we'll be in touch. Thanks so much for everything.
All right, sounds good. Take care.
All right, well, let's listen in on what Jonathan Little has to say, and then we'll come back with winners of home games, and we'll talk a little bit about more of what's going on in the community here.
Ever wondered whether you should call a preflop raise or 3-bet instead? What do you do when you have a flush draw? Do you raise it, or do you just call? What do you do with ace-king when you miss the flop? Are you tired of guessing about what the right play is with your particular hand? Well, my name is Jonathan Little, and I am a 2-time World Poker Tour champion and creator of PokerCoaching.com, where we offer over 1,000 interactive hand quizzes where you play a hand and then get real-time feedback from our world-class pros. Don't guess and don't stress. Just register for your free account at PokerCoaching.com/recpoker right now.
All
that might be. It's a record. We've got 3 Johns on the podcast tonight. Jonathan Little, John Barrows, and John Somsky. I think that might be a first.
And we got a Jones and a Jim. I'm the only one without a.
Oh yeah,
J.
get this bum out of here.
I know, right? Well, I know we use up a lot of extra time talking to John, so we can make this part a little bit quicker. But any thoughts? Anything kind of stick with you guys from that conversation?
I think it's clear he has a passion for it, which is good for all of us. And if you've got ideas that'll make the experience better, hit him up.
Yeah. Now, are you only saying nice things about John because he says nice things about you, or is that how you honestly feel?
No, he's always been a really nice guy. So.
In fact, that was one thing that really piqued my interest. He mentioned this possibility of people like sitting at a poker table enjoying working with John Somsky. And I'm like, if anyone can figure out how to enjoy working with John Somsky, man, please let me know. We're all desperate to figure out how to have a good time hanging out with this guy.
Yeah, I didn't bother to dissuade him of his opinion that he thinks I'm a nice guy. I'll let him figure that out the hard way.
Chris, anything for you?
I mean, it's just great. I think that, I kind of joked about it, but I think that poker players do complain a lot about rake, about structure, about, everything, because we do want to just be able to basically play for free with hour-long levels where, we get we want everything, but I'd like it to be 6-handed, please. And right. There is some sort of balance in there that we've got to become aware of and cognizant of, that you're going to a business, they're paying people to deal to you, and there's a whole infrastructure and cost involved with doing that. So it's really good to think about that, and it's really good to understand that there's people like John who are cognizant of that and are trying to work creatively to still create player-friendly environments and structures, and kind of listen to what players want. So it was a great conversation.
It is interesting. It's where else do you go and have the same experience? If I'm going to go in and I'm going to order sushi, and it comes with I don't eat sushi, but I don't, it comes with 3 rolls or something, and it's $20. I have no idea if that's good or bad. Am I going to say, you know what? I think I should get 6 rolls for $12. It just feels like for some reason poker players have this freedom, this license to to know better. But we wouldn't really do that at restaurants, because we just trust that they're charging us the right amount. So it's interesting. But John and I have had a lot of conversations about the nuances of where poker fits into the business, and I think it's fascinating. And I think as much as we can help support with awareness, as well as research or whatever to help support the value of the tournaments in the casino, I think that's how they're going to stay alive. So go ahead, Chris.
One of the last thing is I think it would be kind of fascinating to sort of talk to some of our members too, because I don't know, even if you ask me, do you want a higher rake with a better structure or a worse structure with a lower rake, or where do people, it's sort of an interesting, this is the dilemma that tournament directors have to face all the time. And I don't, if I had to just pick and choose what mine optimum was, I don't even know where I'd land.
I've done some of that work, and I should pull it out at some point, but it's sort of okay, well, 9-handed to 8-handed, that's 10% higher cost. So do you want a 10% higher rate instead of $5 or $20? It'd be $22. Is that, not that it's perfectly
right? And is that worth it to have 8-handed play, which you like better? I don't know.
Right, 8-handed, but you lose 2 minutes off of each level. You prefer that, and I think those are interesting because it is give and take. Now,
trade-offs.
What's that?
Yeah, no, that's it. Trade-offs. It's different players have different preferences for these kind of cusp cases, where it's where is the value present for certain people? I think that's
now
really
we're going to get into utility theory. Now you're really going to
that's right.
We all have a different utility curve of those different things. So
exactly.
There we go. He'll get me going, but good stuff. So let's get into some of the community happenings just real quick. We had a great time this weekend. We talked about it a little bit. We had a few of us participated in the harness racing. They gave us some bets so we could learn how to use the machine. It was pretty fun. I had a great time playing the ponies and just sitting outside.
I bet on the 5-horse every time. It never came in. So that's not a good strategy.
No, you got to bet on the 55 horse. You need a real big track for that one.
Yeah, Chris ended up playing cash too, so I was placing his bets for him once he got seated. It was 5-horse to win every race, and he didn't get anything. My strategy, now listen very carefully, my strategy turned out to be bet the number 1 horse to win and also the number 2 horse to finish first or second. And the theory behind that is because then I wouldn't forget who I picked when I was watching the race. And I just taking a slip out of my pocket and go, get a 6 horse to show. So 1 to finish 1 or 2 to finish 1 or 2. And I made $30.
And you won money doing that.
Genius, but no.
Everybody's got a system.
We had fun, that we had dinner, we had the races, then Friday we had dinner, and then we had the tournament, which capped out what we could fit in 4 tables. Saturday morning we had breakfast, and then we had the tournament. A number of people showed up to those meals. It was just super fun. The whole thing was super fun. Troy Graffentine was our inaugural invitational champion, beating Andrew Feist.
Wow.
Andrew was 1 card away. It was so close.
Tournaments are cruel.
Yeah.
Tournaments are cruel.
I was able to get heads up of Brian Morey took down the second tournament. So those were our 2 champions, Troy, Brian, great job. But wonderful time was had by all the entire weekend. So definitely a do-over type of event. So thanks for everybody that came out and participated in that thing. Running Aces was thrilled, and we had a ball. And like John said, we treated the dealers great, treated the servers great. People said it was like a charity event. People were so happy and just positive community. And so thanks for being consistent with what it is we're trying to do here. So wonderful stuff. With that, why don't we turn it over to Mr. Somsky, who of course has Mr. Barrows convinced that he's nice as well. John, what do you have to say for us?
About anything, or
what's your thought on, I know Jim's stoicism, you could go down that.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to have a long philosophical debate here, but we are running a little long on time, so I think I'm going to just actually go to our home game winners. So we had our No Limit Hold'em Championship Series on Wednesday, June 2nd. And now then, KB, Doug Behrens won his very first championship event.
Nicely done.
Then for our daily series and the nightly events, Kabuloshu Kabul?
I think you got it. I think that's
Ah.
exactly how it is.
I don't know. I really apologize for my hacking of that name, but Adelson Neves Wernick got his very first nightly win, and he just joined like within the last month. So
Yeah,
it's a new
do you
player.
remember where he's from? He's an international player.
He's from Brazil, and we were three-handed in that tournament, and it was the two of us and Roger Lamp, I think, or was it Roger Shoot? Oh no, I don't remember now. It was one of the great Rogers at Rec Poker, and I cannot believe these guys were just bringing the heat every single hand. I remember that one. That was a big one, and I've seen Adelson in a bunch of the tournaments since then, so I think they're going to be a regular feature around here.
But I think that's our first Brazilian winner, John. I think, unless you know otherwise, right?
That could be. I do not. That's one of the stats I do not track is the location or birth dates or addresses or zip codes of any of the players that.
Yeah, I just happened to notice it in the home game. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
very
nicely
nice.
done.
Then
I don't know if
first.
we're going to be shipping any merchandise down to Brazil. I mean, we can talk about that. But if we do, can we just take a second here? Because I don't want John to get too comfortable. Like, I know that the black and yellow looks good for Steelers fans everywhere, but check out the silver fox over here. Look at Steve Fredlin rocking the black and white. Damn, Steve, you're making it look good, man.
Thank you. It's a good looking shirt. I started wearing. I wore the polo up to Fargo, and I'm like, I kind of like this. I'm not really always a polo guy, but I kind of like the feel, and it looks crisp.
Yeah,
I really like it.
Ladies, I'm telling you, check out the YouTube version of this podcast. I hope you're not just listening, because you're going to want to check out what's happening over here in the corner.
I'm going to get Tracy. Jim is.
Oh, he's not available, ladies. He's taken, but feast the eyes is all I'm saying.
30 years, baby. I'm taking. But it's fun. Yeah, the merch part of it's fun. John, that is Jim that derailed that one.
Sorry, John, were you in the middle of something there?
That's all right. Well, June 1st, Rabman50, Rob Washam.
Yeah.
Got his first nightly victory for the year.
Take it home, Rob. Represent.
Fourth lifetime. Then Rick the Good Dog, Rick the Rock Oman, got his first nightly for the year.
Sweet.
Wolfman 109, Adam Wolf, got his second nightly for the year. Papa Barks, Dave Barker, got his first nightly for the year.
Yes, sir.
You need to interject there, John. I apologize. So I'm a little bit disappointed in what happened that night, however. So Dave Barker gets a hold of me around 8:10. The tournament how do I get in here? My account's been suspended. He didn't, it wasn't tracking what we were doing. So I'm scrambling from 8:10 to about 8:30. Okay. I'm like, are you reading this? Well, I haven't done that yet. Well, okay, now you got to do this. You got to set this up. You got to put your username in. I'm walking him through this whole thing, and he gets there by 8:30. He ends up beating me heads up that night. Did I let this guy in? So anyway, sorry, I had to interject there. But Dave, congratulations. He came out this weekend too. So well done.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's great.
Then for our mixed practice event, I never know how to pronounce this, but Isinma Spike won the mixed game Nice Badoogie event.
Oh yeah.
Then international events, Don't Chase 666, Joseph Armstrong,
Coming
and then
regular.
once again we have Isinma Spike. Got his second international win.
Back to back, Spike. There you go. We got to give him the old back to back. He's got to know that, there you go. You got it, brother. Well
Can
done.
you change your poker stars? Well, first of all, I got to win one of these, but then I want to change my name, so it's hard for John to pronounce.
But yeah, that's right.
What I might just saying is somebody won. Okay, then on June 6th, we had Binkley, Eric Jin.
Nice.
On the daily LPP event.
Fantastic.
And that's his second win there as well.
He's a Raiders fan like our buddy Rich, so he might like that polo a little better, Steve, making it look sharp there for those Raiders fans across the way.
And don't forget, on June 19th, we have our Heads Up series. Registration is open. It's going to be on Saturday at 1 p.m. I don't know how long the event's going to take. It's the first time running Heads Up. It's a shootout format. So that means once your tournament and you need to wait for all of the other tournaments before the next round begins. So just be aware of that, be prepared, and there is no late registration for this event. So if you want to play, register early. You can go register right now.
Hey, John, so can you confirm, so it's just in the same PokerStars club as our normal nightly?
Yes,
We
it
just
is.
look for that date, the 19th?
Yep.
Okay.
And in our normal club, it'll be in the 19th. You might need to sort the tournaments because the default sorting is when they randomly get created. So sort by date, and then you'll be able to find it.
Okay, and then then you're in. And
Yeah.
if you register and don't show up, you're gonna get blinded off. So it's basically a buy for the first person, I assume, right?
Yep.
All right, sweet, dude. And anybody registered yet? Do we have any early?
I know I have registered.
Okay, John's into that thing. I might need to go register right now while you guys are talking.
Yeah, there you go. Get those registries. And John, the winner of this actually gets to play against the crew in Marek Madness next year, right? This is
Correct.
one of the qualifying tournaments for Marek
Correct.
Madness.
We will be having this event 3 times in June, September, and December, or June.
Yeah, September,
Yeah,
December.
yeah.
That's right.
Okay, that's right. And the winner of each one of those tournaments will be one entry. And if someone wins all 3, then they probably have a good chance of winning Marek Madness too.
Good point. Good point.
There's 5 of us already registered now on June 19th. So let's get out there. You guys have been asking for heads up play. Let's do this thing. And this June 7th is when we're recording, so we have a little bit of time, but this gets released on whatever the 15th.
The 15th. Yeah,
well, so I guess this is our final episode before it actually happens. So
that's it. Yeah, get out there this Saturday.
This Saturday. All right, great stuff, John. Of course, as always, amazing. Anything else you want to talk about in the home game stuff?
Nope, that's it.
All right. How about you, Mr. Jones? What do we want to chat about?
I'll just be really quick. I think we're moving on to our second month of our new seminar structure coming up soon. So look for that. We had a great time doing it the first time, and I think there's lots of ways we can keep using this tool. So we're really excited about it.
I know I should know this, but like when does that get released? The video recording for that for members, and then I know people are able to participate in that. What is the avenue for people that are saying this sounds cool, but I missed how I can participate?
So it'll get released in early July. We'll be recording it in late June. And people, all you got to do is get on the forums. You got to be a member, a Rec Poker member. You got to get in the forums. There's a post that Jim put up there. And all you got to do is sign up and say, I'd like to be part of this. And then we work with you to try to make sure that you can show up that night.
Yeah, this one's on June 28th. So there's a thread in the Rec Poker forums under the group, a monthly seminar, and you can there's room for one more person at the time of this recording in this session and a couple alternates. And if we don't, if you're second or third extra on the list, we'll just use you in July. And then the seminar comes out on the first Tuesday of every month in multiple parts, very easy to break down and enjoy. So I'm looking forward to that.
It was so much fun. I still smile and think about not just the moment with the 5s, but just the whole thing was so much fun. So thanks you, Chris, for coordinating all that, Jim, for all the logistics of all that stuff too, man. It's great stuff. All right. Anything else?
Actually, I guess the only other thing on that note would be on the Saturday of the Heads Up tournament. If you're free an hour earlier, come join me in my study group, which I do every Saturday. On the 19th, it'll be based around the subject matter of the seminar this month, which was satellite play. We might look at a hand from the seminar, and then we'll wrap up in time to jump into that shootout in the Heads Up match.
Sweet. Good stuff, you guys, and just tons going on. Go to rec.poker. I had somebody ask me about some things. I said, really just get on the newsletter. Go to rec.poker, get on the newsletter. If email is kind of how you like to receive things, we do try to communicate that way, but just get out there, poke around. A lot of cool stuff. We're continuing to make improvements in the site and the content and the streamlining of everything. So go out there and check it out. And I do have people say once in a while, say, how can we support what you're doing? There's different ways you can support us for sure. If it's financial, if you're willing to do financial, become a premium member. You're not going to be disappointed in all the stuff that you get, but even if you're just doing it as a way of giving us $15 a month to help us do all the stuff that we're doing, because we're just volunteering to do all this stuff. Like that's a great way to do it. If it's more like social media related stuff, like just be one of those people that whenever we post something, like retweet, share, do that, comment. That kind of stuff is huge. Write a review for us out on SoundCloud or wherever you listen to your podcast. All of that stuff is huge for us and huge for the algorithms. If you think the world needs to hear more from us, maybe you don't. But if those are ways that you can do it. Honestly, they don't cost you anything. They cost you a little bit of time, and it means the world to us. That encouragement, but also just the algorithm help that gives us out on social media is huge. So do those things if you want to support what it is, whatever it is that we got going on here. So Jim, I think I'll cue you there for the music. That'd be awesome. But thanks, John Barrows, Running Aces, the great folks there. Chris Jones, John Somsky, Jim Reed, great stuff. Thanks for Running Aces, Racetrack and Hotel for being guys.